Have you ever felt the night suddenly became very heavy? As if there was air, but it was hard to breathe. That night, it was exactly like that. The moon was in the sky, but it wasn't giving light. The stars were shining, but they didn't show any direction. And in the middle of that silence, a man was sitting all alone. His name was Yunus ibn Saleh. He was not a king nor a scholar. He was just a man whose voice would call for dawn. People didn't recognize him by his face, they recognized him by his voice, because he would call and people would wake up. But that night, the call came for him. Yunus was sitting on the balcony of the mosque. A strange restlessness was stirring in his chest, such restlessness which has no name. He said slowly, "Oh God, why does my chest feel so heavy?" No answer came, but just then a voice entered his right ear, very softly, very close. "Yunus." He startled. He looked around. No one was there. The door of the mosque was closed. The street was empty. The city was asleep. He convinced himself maybe it was imagination, maybe it was fatigue. He would go to stand up right then and there again, more clearly, more heavily. Yunus ibn Saleh. This time his body stiffened, because no one called him by this name. This name was only on his mother's lips, and that mother, she is lying in the cemetery of this city. Her feet stopped on their own. The heart started beating. He whispered, "Who?" There was no answer, but the voice came from closer, this time from behind the mosque, towards the cemetery. "Don't look back." Hearing this, Yunus's body went cold. He knew this. Everyone knew it. If someone calls from the direction of the grave, don't look back, because the one who calls is not always visible. 1,000 words started going through his head at once. Should I run or should I stand? Just then the last word came, right in his ear. "Just come forward." Yunus understood this call could not be ignored. Why not go, he didn't know, but his soul knew. He started walking slowly. With every step, it felt like the ground was moving. As he crossed the cemetery gate, he suddenly felt that once he entered this gate, he would no longer be the same person he was before. But then there was no turning back. As soon as he entered, the sounds around him suddenly stopped. No dogs, no insects, not even the sound of leaves. Such silence as if someone was waiting to hear him. Yunus was walking. There were rows of graves, some old, some new. Some had names, some didn't. Suddenly a strange feeling arose in his chest, as if someone was watching, but he couldn't see. Just then, as he passed a grave, the ground gave way a little under his feet. He stopped, his ears perked up, and then a very low sound, like breathing. Not loud, not clear, but human breathing. Yunus whispered, "Oh God." Just then, a soft light began to rise from a grave in front of him. Not like fire, not like the moon. Such a light that does not make the eyes burn, but the chest trembles. A figure in the light, an old man, white beard, eyes closed, lips moving. He is not speaking, yet it seemed he is saying a lot. Yunus said in a trembling voice, "You, who are you?" The old man opened his eyes. Seeing the eyes, Yunus understood these eyes are not those of a human. These eyes have seen a lot. The old man said only one thing, "I am the man whom people have forgotten." He paused for a moment and said again, "But Allah has not forgotten." Just then, the sound of the call to prayer came from the direction of the mosque. Yunus startled, because the call to prayer was in his voice, but he was standing here.
The old man said calmly, "The call to prayer has come, Yunus." Yunus whispered, "But I didn't." The old man's answer came slowly. The day Allah calls, on that day the Spirit responds first. An unknown fear arose in Yunus's heart. This fear was not of running away. This fear was of understanding. The old man looked at him and said, "This is the beginning." In front of Yunus's eyes, the old man stood in an unfamiliar poetic manner. But with one word, his voice shakes his mind. "This is the beginning." Yunus's body is shaking. A word is rising in his heart. "Let's go," but his feet don't want to move. There is no anger in the old man's eyes, but there is a strange determination, as if he knows what is hidden inside this man. "Yunus," he said, "do you know why you are here?" Yunus's throat was dry. He could only get out his voice, "No." The old man said slowly, "Because your city doesn't listen, your mosque doesn't listen, your name doesn't listen." Yunus understood these words were coming very close to his ears, but no one was showing. The old man's voice came again. "This silence of the cemetery is calling you, because this city is buried in silence." Yunus's eyes became wet. He said, What can I do?" The old man paused for a moment. There was a shadow of pain in his eyes. "You," he said, "can do only one thing. Tell the truth." Yunus said in fear, "But if I tell the truth, people will kill me." The old man's voice was completely calm. "If you suppress the truth out of fear of people, your soul will also be suppressed." A strange thorn pricked Yunus's throat because he understood this is not an ordinary fear. This fear that slowly shakes you, breaks you, makes you empty. The silence of the cemetery is no longer silent. The graves seem to be walking. Yunus looked back. The graves were right, but he felt that the graves were looking at him. A voice came, "Yunus, tell me your mother's name." Yunus's throat suddenly got stuck. Why? Because no one knows this name, but the voice knows it. Yunus held his voice and said, "Aisha." The voice stopped. Then a moan came from a little distance. "No one even knows my name." Yunus's eyes blurred because he understood the voices coming from inside the grave were not just calling him, they were bearing witness to him. The soil of the cemetery was telling a secret. We are silent here, but our suffering is not silent. Yunus suddenly thought, do the people of his city really not listen? The voices of the cemetery were telling him one thing after another. We told the truth. We were silent. We died of shame. We would not have received justice. Yunus's voice began to tremble. "Oh God, what should I do?" The old man said, "You just listen." Yunus kept listening. As he listened, a strange peace came in his heart, but that peace intensified his fear, because in the face of truth, fear disappears.
And when fear disappears, then a person finds himself in front of the truth. Yunus immediately understood. There are no ghosts inside this cemetery. There are no jinn. There is only truth. And in the face of truth, people's fear is the greatest fear. Suddenly, a voice said, "Yunus, do you know me?" Yunus said in a trembling voice, "No." The voice said, "You don't see me, but I see you." A shadow became empty in front of Yunus's eyes, as if someone was showing him, but there was nothing in front of his eyes. Yunus started crying. He knew this was no ordinary cry. This was the cry which a person only does when they are alone. This was the cry which awakens the fear of the hereafter.
Yunus suddenly felt the call to prayer in his voice was no longer his. The call to prayer seemed to be coming from inside the cemetery, and the graves, they were listening to the call to prayer. The silence of the cemetery started to tremble little by little. The old man said, "Now you understand. Why is the grave calling?" Yunus said in a trembling voice, "Why?" The old man said, "Because they want you to tell the truth." Yunus caught his voice and said, "But if you tell the truth, people—" The old man paused for a moment, a shadow of suffering in his eyes. "People never admit the truth. You just look to Allah." A breath caught in Yunus's chest because he understood this is no ordinary call anymore. This is the call of Allah, and the call that Allah gives never goes empty. Yunus stood inside the cemetery. His body was shaking, but his mind was completely still, because he understood this is not just a call, this is a message which people do not want to hear, a message whatever you say will hurt you. A word stuck in Yunus's throat: truth. After he heard the call to prayer, he suddenly understood this is not just a call to prayer, this is a gesture. The old man's voice gradually disappeared. The light in the cemetery was also fading. Darkness entered Yunus's eyes. He tried to hold himself back, but the ground seemed to be blocking his feet. He felt the ground in the cemetery was stopping him. A voice said again, "Yunus." This time the voice was closer, and the voice said, "Your city is calling you, but you won't be able to hear." Yunus understood. His name was now being called in the cemetery. This was no ordinary call. This was not human call. This is the call that penetrates the heart of a person. Yunus slowly started walking back. He started to leave the cemetery, but just then a voice came from behind him. "Don't look back." Yunus stopped. There was no sound in his throat, but there was only one thing in his eyes. He couldn't look back. But what if he looked back? What if he looked back? He tried to control himself. Suddenly he remembered about the grave. He who stands in front of the grave and looks back, all the troubles of his life come back. Yunus's voice trembled. "Oh Allah." He slowly put his hand on the ground. His hand was shaking. Tears welled up in his eyes. He said in a voice, "Oh Allah, I don't want me to break. I don't want me to forget your path." For a moment, everything stopped. The silence of the cemetery became a little more silent. Then a sound like destruction. The ground shook. All the graves around the cemetery seemed to move together. Yunus looked at the ground, trembling. Before his eyes, a gravestone slowly cracked. It didn't crack, it tore. And from that crack, a hand emerged. The hand was not human. The hand something that was human but is no longer human. Yunus moved back. His body became empty. There was no sound in his throat, but his heart was saying, "This is the beginning." The hand slowly rose, and the voice said again, "Yunus, we are waiting." Yunus's eyes closed. He pulled himself by the shoulders. He felt his life would change completely from this moment. Suddenly, a flash of light, and in front of him the city streets appeared, as if the cemetery had released him from within. Yunus ran out. He ran towards the city. People were sleeping on the streets. No one was looking at him, but he felt everyone was watching him, but no one was speaking. His throat was dry. He ran, but it felt his feet were stuck to the ground. Suddenly, he stopped, because he saw the call to prayer had begun in the minaret of the city mosque. But the call to prayer was not in his voice. The call to prayer was in someone else's voice, but the call to prayer was as strong as before. Yunus's throat trembled. He understood. The call of the cemetery had entered the city, and this call would wake up not only him, but everyone. Yunus gasped. His body was shaking. He said in his voice, "Oh Allah, forgive me." Just then, at the very end of the city street, a shadow is standing. The shadow is looking at him, but the shadow's face is not visible. The shadow is only raising one hand, like an invitation. A final word stuck in Yunus's throat. No. But his feet didn't say no anymore. He started moving towards the shadow. And then someone touched his shoulder. Yunus turned around. There was no one there, but the touch of the shoulder was so real, as if it had been touched by a human being. The voice came to his ears again. "Yunus, now you know you are no longer alone." Yunus said tremblingly, Who are you?" The voice said, "I am the one who called you." Darkness fell on Yunus's eyes. His throat trembled. I don't understand." The voice said, "It's okay. You will understand. You will learn. You will tell the truth." Yunus's heart was still afraid, but there was one word he was afraid of. "If I tell the truth, what will people do?" The voice said, "People won't do anything because they don't want to hear the truth. They just want to silence you." Yunus stood silently. Tears were forming in his eyes. A voice rose in his chest. "What will I do?" The voice said, "You just leave. Before dawn, you do one thing. Wake up the city." Yunus's throat went dry. He said slowly, "But how can I?" The voice said, "As Allah wills." Then
the voice stopped. The silence of the city returned again, but Yunus understood. From now on, all the moments of his life will not be silent, because now there is a calling inside him, a calling which will never leave him. The light of dawn had not yet spread throughout the city, but Eunice's heart was filled with a strange darkness, as if even if the light came, it would not be able to penetrate him. He ran towards the mosque. His feet slowly moved forward, but it felt like the ground was sticking to his feet. There was no call to prayer in his voice, but the call to prayer was ringing in his heart. "What is this? What happened?" he said to himself. Standing at the door of the mosque, he saw the people of the city were not looking at him. No one saw him, no one recognized him, but he felt everyone was looking at him. This feeling scared him because he understood the people who didn't see him, they had forgotten him. How wrong is this? Why would people forget him? That's when he remembered the voice of the cemetery. Your city is calling you, but you won't be able to hear. Eunice entered the mosque, the only companion inside the mosque, the pace of his prayer. But today, even his prayer seemed unfamiliar. His hands were shaking, his eyes were getting wet. He looked and saw an old Quran lying in a corner of the mosque, a Quran like no other he had ever seen. On the page of the Quran, a word was written in red, "Listen." Eunice said in a trembling voice, "What is this?" No answer came, but the pages of the Quran began to tremble on their own, as if someone was touching them from the inside. Eunice opened the Quran while crying. It was written there, "People don't accept the person who tells the truth first." A strange voice rose in Eunice's throat. "Why?" Just then, someone made a sound of footsteps behind him. Eunice turned around. There was no one. But the voice came again, "Because they don't want to hear the truth." Eunice understood. From now on, his life will be lonely. But being lonely is not just physical loneliness, it's mental loneliness. It's that loneliness where people see you, but they don't listen to you. Eunice went out of the mosque. Before his eyes, the people of the city were actually standing around each other. They had smiles on their faces, there was joy in their eyes, but no one was speaking. Some just looked at each other, as if they wanted to understand why Eunice had changed so terribly now. He looked at one of Eunice's friends, that he would recognize Eunice, Eunice thought, but his friend just shook his head and said, "Where were you today?" Eunice said with a trembling voice, I was outside." His friend laughed and said, "Wow, outside on a night like this? Are you crazy?" Eunice understood. His friend didn't understand him because his language didn't have the call of Allah. Eunice said, You don't feel something strange?" His friend was surprised and said, "What?" Eunice said, "In this city, have you ever felt that something is being kept secret?" His friend laughed and said, "What are you talking about? This city is quiet." An emptiness formed in Eunice's heart because he knew how much suffering was hidden inside this peace. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was the phone of the city's chief imam. Eunice picked up the phone. The imam said, "Eunice, did you pray Fajr today?" Eunice said with a trembling voice, "Yes." The imam said, "Then you stay in the mosque. We will talk to you." Eunice understood. This is not an ordinary thing. The voices of the cemetery remembered again. People will make you lonely. Eunice returned to the mosque.
The Imam was sitting in front of him. The Imam said, "Do you know that the voice of your azan has spread throughout the city today?" Yunus's throat got dry. He said, "But I didn't give the call to prayer." The Imam looked at him silently. There was a strange excitement in his eyes. "Do you understand today the call to prayer was sung in our mosque in such a way as if it were not a human voice, as if it were not a voice?" Yunus understood. The call of the cemetery had now entered the city. The Imam said, "The people of the city have been restless since morning. Some can't sleep, some are crying, some are just asking each other, 'Why are we so afraid?'" Yunus said with a trembling voice, "I know." The Imam said, "Do you know that the leaders of the city are now blaming you?" Yunus said with a trembling voice, "Why?" The Imam said, "Because they say you have created unrest in the city." Yunus understood. From now on, there is only one way for him: tell the truth. But if he tells the truth, no one will listen. However, Yunus had only one thing in his mind: if Allah is calling him, then he will be fine even if he is alone. But just then, the Imam put a question in his eyes and said, "Yunus, have you ever thought, was there really anyone in the cemetery you went to?" Yunus remained silent because he knew if he told the truth, people would suppress him. But a strange voice arose within him. Yes, there was. The Imam suddenly stood up. His eyes had a strange color. He said, "Then you will not be with us from today." Yunus's voice trembled. "Why?" The Imam said, "Because you are destroying our peace." Yunus understood. Now his path to telling the truth has become more difficult, because people don't just want to hear the truth, they want to live in peace. And peace, that's more important to them. Yunus left the mosque and looked at the city. The city is not peaceful now. The city is afraid, and that fear gives a strange feeling, as if the voices of the cemetery are now roaming every alley of the city. Yunus's throat trembled. "O Allah, give me strength." Just then, that voice came to his ears again. "Yunus, you are not alone now." Yunus looked around. There was no one. But he heard a voice inside his chest. "The city is not worth listening to. That's why they made you alone." Yunus understood. This is not just his story. This is the story of the city. This is the story of the people. This is the story of truth. The night in the city was cold, but Yunus's heart was hot, as if a fire was burning inside him. People were talking around him, but they weren't talking. They were just blaming him. There was fear in his friends' eyes, because they understood that the smell of truth makes people crazy. Yunus understood he had no friends from now on, because standing on the side of truth meant not standing on the side of people. He returned home. Everything was fine in his house, but his mind was not right. He tried to remember his daughter's face, but he couldn't, because only one word was growing in his mind: "In the cemetery, in the cemetery." He went to sleep, but sleep did not come to him, because there was only one image in his head: the trembling of the cemetery, the cracked plaque, the hand. The hand seemed to be stuck in front of his eyes. In his sleep, a voice said, "What you have seen, what you have heard, what you will say, all will kill you." Yunus woke up. His room was dark, but in the darkness There was a light coming from under the door. Yunus got up and opened the door. There was no one outside the door, but there was a mark on the ground, a footprint which was not human. It was a footprint which seemed to be made of 2 feet joined together. Yunus understood this was the mark of the voice of the cemetery. A strange fear arose in his heart. He returned and opened the Quran. The page of the Quran still had the words, "Listen."
Listen, Yunus said in a trembling voice. I am listening. But the page of the Quran began to tremble on its own, as if some power had touched the Quran. Yunus understood. This is not an ordinary event. This is a miracle. But a miracle is terrifying to him, because a miracle means that you are near Allah, but you are different from people. Yunus closed the Quran. His throat trembled. "Oh Allah, I am only trying to tell the truth." Just then, the window of his house opened. There was no wind, but the window opened. A voice said, "If you tell the truth, you will die." Yunus's eyes went dark. His feet stuck to the ground, but he understood this was not the word of a devil. This was the word of the voice that called him to the cemetery. Yunus's voice came out. "Who are you?" The voice said, "I am your fear. I am your doubt. I am the fear of the people of your city. I am the fear hidden inside your prayer." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "You will not stop me." The voice said, "I will not stop, but I will break you." A strange light shone in Yunus's eyes, as if the light of Allah was shining inside him. He said, "Allah is with me." The voice said, "Allah has abandoned you." Yunus's throat trembled. "No, no." The voice came closer. "If you tell the truth, the city you live in will eat you up." Yunus then understood. His life was at stake for the truth. He picked up the Quran, but as he held the Quran in his hand, he realized the Quran was getting hot. It is so hot as if it touches fire. Yunus said in a trembling voice, "O Allah, what is this?" The voice said, "This is your test." Yunus opened the Quran. A verse flashed before his eyes, as if it was burning like fire. Yunus read and listened. "If you tell the truth, you will not live. But if you are on the path of truth, even your death is victory for Allah." A strange peace came into Yunus's heart, because he understood if he is on the path of truth, even death is victory for him. Suddenly, a voice was heard outside the door. "Yunus, you leave the city today." Yunus's voice trembled. "Why?" The voice said, "Because your death will calm the city." Yunus understood. This is a kind of temptation from Shaitan, because Shaitan wants you don't tell the truth or you die saying the truth. There was only one word in Yunus's throat: "I will tell the truth." Just then there was a sound outside, as if something big was breaking. Yunus looked out the window. Looking at the city, he saw the minaret of the mosque in the center of the city was collapsing. This was not an earthquake. This was not an accident. It was collapsing in a way that, as if someone was saying, "Listen." Yunus's chest broke. He felt now the call of truth has come out from within the city. But what comes with truth? Fear. Fear comes with truth. The city is shaking, people are shaking, and Yunus understood now there was only one path before him, the path of telling the truth. He opened the door and went outside.
The city was now completely unfamiliar. People were hiding in their homes. No one was looking out the windows. No one was coming out. Only one sound, the call to prayer. The call to prayer was solemn. The call to prayer was terrifying. It seemed as if the call to prayer had entered the city. Yunus understood. The call to prayer was no longer just a call to prayer. It was a message that was waking people up. The ground was shaking under Yunus's feet. He slowly started walking towards the mosque, but just then a shadow stood in front of him. The shadow was human-like, but its face was strange. The shadow said, "Yunus, will you tell the truth?" Yunus said with a trembling voice, "Yes." The shadow smiled and said, "Then you die." Yunus then understood. The fear of the city is not only of humans, it is of the power which surrounds the truth. Yunus slowly said, "I will be on the path of Allah." The shadow slowly disappeared, but one last word was engraved in Yunus's ears. "The city you awaken, the city will kill you." Yunus was still standing. There were no tears in his eyes, because he understood a person who tells the truth may not live, but he will never lose. Darkness has descended within the city, but there is no darkness in Yunus's eyes, because a light is shining in his heart, a light that is not in the eyes of humans. He was walking towards the mosque, but his footsteps did not stick to the ground. They floated on the ground. The sound of the call to prayer was ringing in his ears like waves. This was no ordinary call to prayer. This was a call to prayer that broke people's hearts. The people of the city were stuck in their houses. No one wanted to come out, because they understood this call to prayer would mean something terrible. Yunus stood at the gate of the mosque. An old man was standing near the gate. His eyes were closed. The old man's voice trembled. "Yunus." A word stuck in Yunus's throat. "You?" The old man said, "What you saw, what you heard, what you felt is all true." Yunus said in a trembling voice, "You? Who are you?" The old man said, "I am Nuraya." Yunus suddenly stopped, because Nuraya, he had never heard that name before. Nuraya raised her hand and pointed at him. "Did you hear the call of the cemetery?" Yunus said in a trembling voice, "Yes." Nuraya opened her eyes and said, "Then you come with me." Yunus understood this is not an ordinary old man, because in Nuraya's eyes there is a glimmer of light which is not in human eyes. Nuraya took Yunus inside the mosque. Inside the mosque was a Quran which was completely white, but not white, white light. Nuraya said, "This Quran is for you. You will read this Quran. You will listen to this Quran. You will hold this Quran before people." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "But I am just an ordinary person." Nuraya said, "You are ordinary, but you have the light of Allah inside you." Yunus's voice trembled. "I am afraid." Nuraya said one by one, "Be afraid, but don't let fear suppress you, because fear will give you strength." Yunus then understood. Fear means being close to death, and when you are close to death, you understand the value of life. Nuraya said, "The people of the city will blame you. They will scare you. They will lie to you. They will kill you." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "Then what should I do?" Nuraya said, "You just hold this Quran in your hand and tell people, if you want to hear the truth, then turn to Allah." Yunus took the Quran in his hand. The The Quran was so heavy as if the whole world was pressing on his back. Yunus said in a trembling voice, "Can I read it?" Nuraya said, "You can, because this Quran is the Quran of Allah, and Allah will give you strength." Yunus opened the Quran. A verse flashed before his eyes, as if it was written in the language of fire. Yunus began to read with a trembling voice, "Ya Allah," but his throat completely choked, because the words of the Quran are not just stuck in his throat, they are entering the hearts of people. People outside the mosque are listening, but they do not understand if this is true, but their tears have come to their eyes, because this Quran, it is touching their hearts. Yunus stopped reading. A picture appeared before his eyes. A shadow is standing on a building in the city. The shadow is not a person, but it is occupying people. Nuraya said, "Do you see? These shadows are the leaders of the city." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "What are they doing?" Nuraya said, "They want to erase the truth."
They want to break the truth. They try to kill the truth. Yunus said with a trembling voice. "Then what will I do?" Nuraya said, "You will tell the truth. You will tell the truth to the people, and they will kill you." A strange light shone in Yunus's eyes. I agree." Nuraya smiled. "Then start." Yunus went out of the mosque. The people of the city were looking at the mosque. No one dared to come out, but there was such a power inside Yunus that he could not stop him. Yunus grabbed the microphone. A strange sound rose in his throat. "Allahu Akbar!" The city fell silent, because they knew this word meant something terrible would happen. Yunus said, "The people of the city, I will tell you the truth." The people of the city began to tremble, because they knew that hearing the truth would change their lives. Yunus said, "We are going the wrong way. We have forgotten Allah. We have made our own graves." A voice rose in the city. "Lies!" A man shouted. "You are scaring us." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "I am not scaring. I am telling the truth." The people of the city began to riot. Someone tore the microphone. Someone began to scold, "You must be destroyed." Yunus understood. Now his life was in danger. But his heart was calm, because he had the light of Allah inside him. Just then, a woman was standing on one side of the city. Her face was strangely beautiful, but there was fear in her eyes. Her name was Rahila. Rahila slowly came forward. In her hand was a small blue cup. She stood in front of Yunus and said, "Are you telling the truth?" Yunus said with a trembling voice, "Yes." Rahila said, "Then I will go with you." Yunus's eyes were surprised, because he understood a man stood on the side of the truth. But just then, the voice of a city leader was heard. "This man is a danger to us. Kill him." The people of the city trembled, but Rahila said, "I will protect him." Yunus understood. This is not just Rahila.
This is the light of Allah, because when someone stands by the truth, the devil is afraid. Rahila looked at Yunus and said, "Will you tell me, why has the city changed like this?" Yunus said with a trembling voice, "Because we have forgotten Allah." Rahila said while crying, "Then what should we do?" Yunus said, "I will tell you the truth, but you have to accept the truth." Suddenly, a flash appeared in the sky of the city. A ray of light descended towards the city. It was a light which, when it entered people's eyes, purified their minds. The people of the city were stunned one by one. They understood, this light, this is the light of Allah. And at that moment, the leaders of the city began to make a strange sound by putting their hands on their bodies one by one. No, 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 because they understood their secret truth had come out. There was only one word in Yunus's voice, "Now I will tell the truth." But just then, a voice like a shrill sound came to his ears. "Yunus, you will be finished now." Yunus looked back, but there was only darkness. A hand in the darkness. The hand came out again. This time, the hand was like a human. The hand slowly came forward, and there was a ring on the finger of the hand. The words on the ring were, "Lies." Yunus's chest broke, because he understood this ring was not just a ring. This is a sign of the power which hates the truth. Yunus said in a trembling voice, I am afraid." The voice said, "Be afraid, but tell the truth." Yunus then made one decision. Whoever tells the truth, his death is predetermined. He grabbed the microphone and said, "I am telling the truth. I am telling it." And then the minaret of the city's mosque shook once again. A voice was heard, "He will not survive." The city is immersed in a strange silence today. The silence is like someone has died, but no one knows who. Yunus is standing at the gate of the mosque, his throat trembling, but his eyes are steady. His own voice is echoing in the microphone in his hand. "I am telling the truth." The people of the city are still standing. No one runs away. No one attacks, because they know, in front of this truth, none of their weapons will work. But they are afraid. Fear is such that it does not allow people to move. Yunus said in a loud voice, "People of the city, we have forgotten Allah. We have made our lives a grave. We are destroying the future of our children." A voice rang in the city, "Lies!" But this lie is no longer working, because the light of Allah has entered the city. Yunus said in a trembling voice, "If you want to hear the truth, then see yourself today." Suddenly, a fog comes down on the city. The fog is so thick that it as if it is swallowing the city in a strange way. A voice was heard from within the fog. "Yunus, do you dare to tell the truth?" Yunus said with a trembling voice, "Yes."
The fog slowly melted and covered the people of the city. People could no longer see each other, but Yunus could see because there was light in his eyes. A shadow emerged from the fog. The shadow was one that was like a human, but not human. The shadow was approaching him. The fog was breaking with his footsteps. The words were stuck in Yunus's throat. "O Allah!" The shadow said, "Are you ready to tell the truth?" Yunus said with a trembling voice, "I am ready." The shadow said, "Then you have to show how the truth can destroy people's lives." Yunus then understood, this is not a human war. This is a test. The shadow stood in front of him and said, "Do you know how many people have died in your city? No one knows their names." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "No." The shadow said, "Then I will show you." The shadow raised his hand and pointed to the sky. Suddenly, a picture-like scene appeared in the sky. A picture of a village where people are dying in terror. A picture of a child where the mother is crying. A picture of a grave where the grave is open. Yunus trembled, because these scenes were the reality of his city. The shadow said, "These are the people of your city. They die for you. They make graves for you." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "Can I stop this?" The shadow said, "No, you can't stop, because you are alone. You only tell the truth."
Yunus then started crying, because if he told the truth, his heart would break. But he didn't stop. He grabbed the microphone and said, "I am telling the truth. I am telling it for you. I am telling it for your children." The fog grew thicker. The voices of the people in the city stopped. Only one word, "Ha ha ha." A smile which was not human, but as terrifying as human. Yunus understood, this is the power which is afraid of the truth. The shadow slowly came and stood in front of him. Now the shadow said, "Are you ready to give your life to tell the truth?" Yunus's voice trembled, "Yes." The shadow said, "Then look." And the shadow raised its hand in front of Yunus. In the mirror, Yunus saw his own face, but his face was no longer human. His eyes were dark. His face was strange. There was a strange peace on his face. Yunus stepped back in fear. What is this?" The shadow said, "This is your death. You will see the light of truth in this death." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "I am afraid." The shadow said, "Fear will not destroy you. Fear will pull you to the path of truth." Tears came to Yunus's eyes. He opened the Quran, but the pages of the Quran had now only turned white. The words of the Quran had melted. Yunus said with a trembling voice, "Why?" Then the voice said, "Because you are on the path of telling the truth. You have not forgotten Allah." Yunus then understood, this Quran is for him, and Allah is telling him, "You are not alone." Suddenly, a shout was heard on the street, "Yunus!"
Yunus turned and saw Rahila running towards him. There was a strange fear in Rahila's eyes, but in her hand was a small piece of paper. She handed the paper to Yunus. Yunus opened the paper. It was written on the paper, "Whoever tells the truth, his death is already written. The leaders of the city will catch you tonight." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "Then what should I do?" Rahila said, "You are telling the truth, so I will be with you." Yunus then understood, it is not just Rahila, this is the light of Allah. Rahila said, "Come on, we will leave the city tonight." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "No." Rahila said in surprise, "Why?" Yunus said, "Because the truth has now come to me, and there is no escaping the truth." Rahila, while crying, said, "So will you die?" A strange light shone in Yunus's eyes. "Yes, but I will die in the way of Allah." Rahila shook his hand. "I will die with you." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "No, you will live." Rahila said, "I am on the side of the truth." Yunus then understood, those who come in the way of the truth die together. The fog thickened again in the city sky, but this time a group of people emerged from the fog, the leaders of the city. They had blood-stained weapons in their hands, hatred in their eyes. They approached Yunus. Yunus said with a trembling voice, "I told the truth." The leaders laughed one by one. "Then you will die today." There was a strange peace in Yunus's eyes, because he knew his death was now his victory. But just then a word came out of the mouth of one of the city leaders. "No, this can't be." The leaders suddenly stopped, because they saw a ray of light shining in Yunus's eyes, and that light was revealing their secret truth before their eyes. The leaders shouted, This man, he has seen us." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "I saw, I heard, and I said." The leaders immediately rushed towards him, but Rahila stood in front of them. She had the Quran in her hand. She held the Quran up high and said, "If you are against the truth, then Allah is against you." The leaders stopped, because there is the power of truth in Rahila's voice. But just then, a voice roared, "Nureya, what are you doing here?" Nureya suddenly stood in front of the mosque, a strange anger in her eyes. She said, "I told you, those who stand on the side of the truth are destined to die." As soon as Nureya finished speaking, a force arose around the city, a force that wants to swallow the city. Yunus said with a trembling voice, "What is this?" Nureya said, "This is the power which fears the truth." The people of the city started shouting, "Save! Save!" But Yunus knew it is not possible to save now, because those who stand in the path of truth, their death is very near. Just then, a flash, a light, and from that light, a voice was heard, "Yunus, you are victorious to me." Tears came to Yunus's eyes, because he understood this is the voice of Allah. He said, "You have spoken the truth, and you will die in my path." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "O Allah, forgive me." Just then, the leaders of the city came towards Yunus, but Rahila stood in front of him. There was a strange power in Rahila's voice. "You will not kill him." The leaders shouted, "Shut up." But Rahila said with a trembling voice, "I am telling the truth." And at that moment, the minaret of the city's mosque shook again, and from inside the mosque a voice came out, "This is not the end." The leaders stopped because they understood this is not just the story of Yunus, this is the story of Allah. And when Allah speaks, Satan stops. Yunus's voice trembles, "I am ready." The leaders immediately came towards Yunus, but just then a fog broke, a light fell on the city, and before Yunus's eyes, the people of the city bowed down one by one. They understood they had made a mistake. They understood they wanted to kill the truth, but the truth belongs to Allah. No one can kill the truth. A voice rose in the city, "Allahu Akbar." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "I have spoken the truth." And just then, with a voice like a cauldron, a strange light shone in the sky of the city. A sign, a light like silk that was written in the sky, "The victory of truth." The city seemed to have stopped. People's hearts were trembling now, but there was a peace within the trembling, because they have understood that standing against the truth breaks people, but standing by the truth makes people alive. Yunus is standing in front of the mosque in the city center. His body is shaking, his throat is dry, but there is light in his eyes, a light that no darkness can erase.
Rahila is standing next to him, tears in her eyes, but a strange determination on her face. Nuraya is standing under the dome of the mosque, a strange anger in her eyes, because she knows the truth of this city is now being revealed. The leaders of the city are standing far away, blood-stained weapons in their hands, hatred on their faces. They know their power is about to end, but they are afraid because they have understood the power of truth can break them. Yunus grabbed the microphone. His voice trembled, but his heart was strong. He said, "People of the city, today I will say the last thing to you." The people of the city are silent because they know there is something in these last words. Yunus said, "I did not come to scare you. I came to tell you the truth." The people of the city trembled because they know that hearing the truth will change their lives. Yunus said, "I forgive you who wanted to kill me, because you wanted to kill the truth out of fear, but I know that your fear will break you too." The leaders laughed one by one, but their laughter was trembling from within. One leader said, "Did you tell the truth? Then why is there no one by your side?" Yunus said with a trembling voice, "I have God by my side." As soon as he finished speaking, a flash appeared in the sky of the city. A light came down. In the light, a voice, which was not a human voice. The voice said, "Yunus, you have spoken the truth in my path." Yunus said with a trembling voice, "O Allah." The voice said, "I am giving you an honor which is not given to any human being." A strange light shone in Yunus's eyes. His body became light, as if something had been released. Nuraya said with a trembling voice, "Now is the time." Yunus understood. Now his death was coming.
But his death no longer scared him because he knew this death was his victory. The leaders immediately came forward, blood-stained weapons in their hands. They surrounded Yunus. Yunus said with a trembling voice, "I am ready." Just then, a flash of light appeared in the city sky again. This time, the light was so bright as if daylight had entered the night. The people of the city closed their eyes because they could not bear this light. In the light, a picture was seen. A picture of a grave. A hand emerged from the grave. The hand was not human. It was the hand which was the sign of the voice of the cemetery. But this time, the hand was shining like light. The voice said, "Yunus, this is for you. You have spoken the truth and will die for the truth." Yunus said in a trembling voice, "Oh God." Rahila said while crying, "Yunus." Yunus looked at her. A strange peace was in his eyes. "I will return again. You will not forget me." Rahila said in a trembling voice, "I will not forget you." Yunus then looked at Nuraya. Nuraya said, "This time your path is over. You have spoken the truth, and you will die for the truth." Yunus said in a trembling voice, "After my death, will the city wake up?" There was a strange peace in Nuraya's voice. "Yes, even if you are not there, you will wake up the city." Yunus then bowed his head. The leaders came towards him. They had knives, guns, rods in their hands. But just then, Yunus's voice trembled. "Allahu Akbar!" A flash in the sky of the city. A force surrounded the city. The leaders shouted, "Nothing is happening. What is this?" At that moment, a ray of light emerged from Yunus's body. The ray of light passed over the city. The people of the city began to cry because they understood this light was touching their hearts. The leaders immediately threw down their weapons because they understood Allah is against them. Yunus's body began to merge into the light. His voice trembled. "Allah, I am returning to you." His eyes closed, and then a voice rang out around the city, "The victory of truth." The people of the city bowed down one by one because they understood they were on the wrong path. They understood their fear had destroyed them. Rahila stood there crying. A strange peace was in her eyes because she understood Yunus's death was not just the end, it was a new beginning. Nuraya said in a trembling voice, "Now the city will wake up." The rays of light in the city sky became stronger. A voice was heard. "Listen, all of you. Allah is true. Those who follow the path of truth, their death is victory in the sight of Allah." The people of the city cried, one by one, "Allahu Akbar!" The leaders of the city covered their faces because they understood their power was over. The city slowly woke up. People turned to prayer one by one, a strange light in their eyes, a light which is the light of truth. Rahila was standing on the minaret of the city mosque, Quran in her hand. She said in a voice, "Yunus, you died for us. I will listen to you. I will not forget you." On the dome of the mosque, a ray of light wrote in the sky, "Truth's victory." And under that light, the city woke up anew.